I love you especially because you are Rakkasans. What a pleasure. No better place. I said, when we come back to Campbell, I want to be standing in front of a podium with a Rakkasan, with a Tory behind me. And here we are. God bless you all. What a beautiful day. What a beautiful day to be with this incredible, historic unit. Listen, I've stood in formation just like you for far too long, so I'm not going to belabor this. Normally, when I talk about the basics, and I'm explaining to the American people or across our force what we're all about. Because for too long, under previous administrations, there were distractions that moved into our formations and across our military that we have to reestablish to get back to basics. Accountability, lethality, warfighting, readiness, training, discipline, all the things that you hear in your ears every single day, you understand as Rakkasans. We're having to reestablish it. So from President Trump's perspective, it's a lot of common sense. It's things like, how about we put America and Americans first, which is what he's done from day one. Or how about in the realm of foreign policy and national security, we want peace, but you achieve peace through strength. Basics that make sense to you, they make sense to me, but were abandoned for far too long. Or inside our department, we've had three very simple principles. Restore the warrior ethos, rebuild the military, reestablish deterrence. This unit, the Rakkasans, understand what it means, what the warrior ethos means. You live it every single day. I got to see it this morning doing PT. Barely hung with my folks in chopping. Where's my chopping? Barely hung with them this morning. You'd all be proud of them. But ultimately, I'll never forget when I arrived. Weapons squad that took me out to smoke the new lieutenant and make sure he understood that around here we mean business. We train hard every single day. The warrior ethos is alive and well right here in this division, in this brigade, and in all of your battalions and companies. I know it. I've seen it. I look at it. I'm looking you in the eye right now. But for far too long, we were distracted by other things in other places and other services. Whether we were dividing ourselves by race or gender, things like diversity, equity, and inclusion, or focused on social justice, the types of things that maybe work on a college campus or in a faculty lounge, but they don't work in a foxhole. They don't work when you have a shared mission. They don't work when the bullets are flying. When you need the distractions and the debris. I was talking to lieutenants today. They said, the less distractions, the better. From a rifle to how you move as a squad and a platoon. It's common sense. Everybody knows that, which is why the dumbest phrase in military history is our diversity is our strength. You see, because I look out at this group and I see a lot of diverse faces, and that's a beautiful and wonderful thing from different backgrounds. But that's not what makes you strong. What makes you strong is your unity of purpose, your cohesion as a unit. You train together, you sweat together, you're willing to bleed together, and you're willing to die for each other. That unity, that red, white, and blue, that beret, that Tory, that's what unites you. It'll unite you forever. It's what brought me back here 20 years after I wore that uniform and I wore that patch. That ethos is what makes the American warrior different. It's what the American people expect. It's what I expect. It's what our commander-in-chief expects. The warrior ethos was lost many other places, but it lives right here. And it's back across our formations and across our army. We're also rebuilding our military. You see the president announced $1.5 trillion for our defense spending in fiscal year 2027. That is a message to the rest of the world. Whether it's our submarines, whether it's space, whether it's fighters, or it is formations, we are investing in those who serve our country. And it's not just exquisite systems and new vehicles. It's quality of life, it's pay, it's barracks, it's chow halls, it's healthcare, it's the types of things that you expect and you deserve and your families deserve. We're investing in you. And the third thing is reestablish deterrence. reestablish, I don't know all that much, I went to public school, but reestablish is an active verb, I think. It's something you have to do on a regular basis. It's an activity. If you lose it, it is lost. It's like a prize fighter who was once at the top of his game, had a bunch of KOs, TKOs, and then lost again, and then lost again. And people start to think, well, I could take him on, that's not difficult. That's in some ways under the previous administration what the world thought of America. Whether it's the disastrous withdrawal in Afghanistan, whether it's Hamas's invasion of Israel, whether it's the war in Ukraine, which never would have started under President Trump, whether it was the invasion on our southern border, tens of millions of people, we have no idea who they are and why they're coming here. That's the definition of an invasion. We started to lose the idea of deterrence. And that's not a political statement, that's just a matter of fact. The world looked at us differently. So President Trump charged then the Department of Defense and now the Department of War to reestablish deterrence on behalf of the American people. It started at our southern border. I just had a chance to get a great briefing from your division commander on what your division is doing on the southern border for the American people to lock it down. 100% operational control of the border. That's our goal. That's what will happen. Border security is national security. Or take drug cartels who operated in our hemisphere with impunity for decades. Politicians said, we'll solve that problem. We'll deal with the drug crisis. And then we would catch and release, catch and release, catch and release. Not anymore. Now, if you're trafficking drugs and you're a designated terrorist organization, you are a target. You will be struck and you will be sunk, not given another chance to bring drugs to our country. Haven't been sinking as many drug boats recently because there aren't as many out there, which is the whole point. We don't want drug boats. And when they move to land, we'll deal with it there as they are. Deterrence. Same thing with the Houthis and Operation Rough Rider. Since Thomas Jefferson, we didn't allow our ships to be shot at. You shoot at an American ship, you pay the consequences. For a couple of years in the previous administration, we allowed that to happen with almost no response. President Trump said we will reestablish our shipping lanes and freedom of navigation. We relentlessly bombed the Houthis until they cried uncle and said, okay, we're done shooting at your ships. That is active deterrence with a clear goal. We didn't need to remake Yemen or invade and nation build. We simply had to make it clear that those actions were unacceptable and our ships sail freely. Same thing with Operation Midnight Hammer, where 7 beautiful B-2s went 37 hours back downtown Tehran before they could even be seen, obliterating Iran's nuclear program, bringing the 12 and giving Iran an opportunity to negotiate. I guess we'll find out soon whether they're willing to negotiate. If they understand President Trump, because the world has seen that when he speaks, he means business. The words he speaks are real. They're grounded in action, which the world again saw about 6 weeks ago in Caracas, Venezuela, when America's best went into the most fortified house, inside the most fortified compound, inside their most fortified fort, think the Fort Campbell of Venezuela, inside their capital city against so-called Russian and Chinese air defenses and radars, and grabbed their nominal president, indicted by the United States in the middle of the night, out of his bed. And Caracas didn't know until 3 minutes before the helicopters landed, when 44 simultaneous missiles landed before those birds landed. Some of the heroes that are on that raid are with us right here on Fort Campbell. We're going to see them later on. No other military in the world can do what the United States military can do when it is unleashed. That is reestablishing deterrence. And that's what I want to get to briefly, is the idea of unleashing, of untying the hands of our warfighters, of not fighting politically correct wars. You see, I used to say that I earned degrees from so-called fancy universities, many of which I've sent back and many of which we don't allow to operate with the Department of War anymore for good cause, because we want them to look more like us, not us look more like them. But I used to say that the biggest degree I ever got was a degree from the University of Samarra, Iraq, where I deployed with the Rakkasans in 2005 to 2006. In fact, on Sunday, it'll be 20 years ago from when the Golden Mosque was bombed in Samarra, Iraq, which changed the trajectory of the Iraq War. And many of you won't remember that. Those of us that were there do. And I don't say I earned a degree from the University of Samarra anymore. I say I learned a degree from Rakkasans University. Because it was not the contours of the battlefield that left an enduring remark on me the most. It was what our soldiers were able to do when they were unleashed versus what happens to them when they are, what shall I say, constricted by confining rules of engagement, or told by leadership what they can or cannot do, or when lawyers are making decisions for commanders instead of commanders making the best decisions for their units. Ultimately, what the operators of that raid in Venezuela told me is they'd never been more prepared for a mission because they'd never been given the kind of authorities and clarity before on that type of a mission. You see, I wasn't there telling them what they can and cannot do, or how they should operate their mission, or what type of weapon systems they should employ, or how violent they should be on the objective. They understood the mission. It was to secure and bring home 2 indicted individuals and give their lives in service of protecting those individuals. But everything in between was sheer violence of action, which I know this group understands. Our boys were coming home, and it didn't matter how many Cuban guards or Venezuelan guards had to die in the process in order to. That was clear to them. They weren't handcuffed. They weren't told what they could or could not do. Everybody understands the rules of engagement. Everybody understands following the law. No one's talking about anything outside of that. We're talking about unleashing. Because too much of what I saw, and I'm here with Eric Garrissey, a name that should be well known inside this unit, received a Silver Star for actions in 2008, was upgraded recently to the Distinguished Service Cross for actions in Baghdad in 2008, the deployment after mine. He's now a senior advisor to me at the Pentagon. Every single day, we talk about what the needs of the Army are across our entire force. He was also my first sergeant when I was chopping 2-6, second platoon leader, chopping Charlie, 3187 of the Rakkasans during that deployment. He was my first sergeant. You guys will appreciate this. I showed up 3 weeks before the deployment. It's a long story. I wrote about it in one of my books. 3 weeks before the deployment, I was a National Guard, non-Ranger qualified, non-air assault qualified, Wall Street, Ivy League guy. And Eric Garrissey looked at me and said, "What the fuck did I just get? Who is this guy? Is this some John Kerry?" It's literally what he said. And he took it upon himself to ensure that if I was there for the right reasons. If I was there to prepare my men. If I was there to learn from my NCOs, draw every piece of wisdom I could from them, train my guys harder than any other squads, platoons, companies across the regiment to ensure that we were prepared for combat. And we served under Colonel Michael Steele, who was famed for the actions in Mogadishu with the Army Rangers, had seen combat. We had not, but understood that crucible. And in those split seconds, you needed to be ready to act, to be precise, to move swiftly. Everybody feels it in your gut in that moment, but does your training take over and kick in so you're willing to do what needs to be done on the objective and at that decisive moment? Eric Garrissey looked at a new lieutenant and said, he needs to be ready. And I'm going to ensure he's empowered and his platoon is empowered so that very first night air assault mission in Baghdad that happened just before Christmas of 2005, that platoon is prepared on the objective for the mission they're undertaking. And Eric Garrissey was right there with me on those birds, making sure that we were. His job was to have my back and empower us. And I felt that from the company commander to the first sergeant, but I didn't feel it in some other echelons. And that's where the problems came. When there were leaders who were more concerned about their own careers, or more concerned about risk mitigation, or more concerned about a perfectly briefed PowerPoint, or really restrictive rules of engagement, or all they did was listen to lawyers, or they were interested in humanitarian and nation building, as opposed to empowering warfighters. And when that happens, you have trigger pullers who are thinking more about what's behind them, meaning what consequences they may face from those they serve, than the enemy that they have to close with and destroy. And that's a mentality that we are hell-bent on changing, ensuring that at every level, your leaders know that we have your back. We have trained you to do difficult things. I got to meet Cody today. Cody went to the Citadel. He's a lieutenant. He's my counterpart. He's chopping 2-6 right now. He holds the position that I had. We stood in his office. Where is he? I don't know Cody. I met him today. But I know him now, and he's an incredible American. The absolute best of America, just like all of you. Joined because he wanted to serve his country, because he wanted to serve with the best. He wanted the toughest challenges every single day. And he was willing to do it on behalf of the American people in the prime of his life. He could go do anything else, just like so many of you. You chose to do this. And someday, your nation may ask you to do something very difficult, up to and including the price of your life. And I'll be damned, as long as we're standing the watch, if we don't give you everything conceivable that you need, most especially the authorities, to execute that mission, to ensure, as Colonel Steele used to say, our brigade commander, we're going to give that poor son of a bitch on the other side necessary to die for his country. Our boys are coming home and they're not. And some things that you do maybe aren't popular in polite society. You have to do things that other people can't even conceive of. And yes, we have codes, and yes, we follow them. But ultimately, we unleash you to be the warfighters that you want to be, so that you're most worried, only worried about what's in front of you, the objective in front of you, and not those in air-conditioned offices and politicians in Washington who make an existence second-guessing you, who want to question why you made that decision in that moment. That's not our job. Our job is to give you what you need to succeed and have your backs. And so it's full circle for me, for First Sergeant Major Garrissey, to come back here. I've got a former ROC 6 who's my senior military advisor. The Rakkasans are well represented at the center of the Pentagon, because we want that warrior ethos represented in the decisions that we're making. It's full circle to be here. And part of what the President of the United States has charged me with doing is ensuring that when we go into a fight, it is not a fair fight, because we are untying the hands of our warfighters. We are not imposing restrictive rules of engagement. We are not allowing you to be second-guessed at every turn. The lawyers are not commanders. Lawyers are advisors. Commanders are commanders. And they make the decisions about how to accomplish the mission on behalf of the American people that maximizes the death and destruction of our enemies and saves lives of Americans so that we come home. Because that is the currency that wins on the battlefield. It's not medals for courageous restraint. That's what were given out, actually, in 2007, 2008, and 2009 by Harvard egghead generals that wanted to give out medals for courageous restraint as they pushed their theories about nation building into infantry units and wanted you to win the war with soccer balls. That's not the mentality that we take anymore. And we want the world to take notice of that. Because if we have to employ you, it will be with clear objectives, with all that you need to accomplish it. And it may have taken 20 years for us to internalize that and to understand what happened and why it happened and how to apply it to our formations today. But we will use every moment of our time to infuse the Rakkasan ethos into every formation across our joint force. so that when you're sent into harm's way, you're sent to win. It's not just we fight. It's not just we defend. It's that we fight to win. And I know that's how Rakkasans feel. I know that's what you train for every day. And rest assured, you have one of your own at the War Department, living that every day and pushing the Army and the Air Force and the Marine Corps and the Navy and the Space Force to think that very same way. And folks in the media may not like that. Some folks in Washington may not like that. But guess what? The American people voted for that. They voted for a return to that toughness and that grit and that merit-based promotion system and lethality. And you are the embodiment of that. So the final message I'll give you is keep going. Keep going with what you're doing and why you're doing it. Have the backs of your leadership, of your men at every echelon, junior NCOs, senior NCOs, lieutenants, you name it. Have the backs of your people. Yes, set the standards of what's right. Enforce the standards of what's right. But have the backs of your people, because we have the same. So God bless you all. And let me say, let valor not fail. I know it won't here. God bless you all. Thank you.